Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Live with Liz. Still reporting from Brazil, but hopefully, if everything goes off okay, today we'll be returning to the United States, overnight, and then tomorrow, hopefully, we'll be on our way to some sort of normalcy in our lives. So that's my big personal news. Maybe I'm oversharing, but we're all negative for COVID, so off we go. And on our regular topic, which is the growing and contracting of various law firm practices for 2022 and what's being projected for this year in terms of where we're seeing investments, where we're seeing growth. Hey, good afternoon, Leah. Usually it is good morning, but here it's good afternoon. And what areas might be suffering if your law firm is considering making any changes that are difficult to practice areas that are underperforming. And for 2022, and even every year we see these things come out from Bloomberg to the Clio Legal Trends Report. There are a lot of different organizations that do research that we can review to understand a broader picture, depending on jurisdiction, depending on practice area, as to what's changing in the legal services market space. And a lot of those changes are dependent on, of course, economic changes and generational expectations. Good morning, Mariana. Wow, you're up early. And we're seeing that on a whole, I don't actually expect practice areas to go away in any real form, but law firms may be forced to cut resources for certain practice areas where they're not getting the bandwidth that they expect from their clients, from the corporate clients that are maybe changing the way they're making some of these investments to economize. They become savvier consumers. Some areas are becoming commoditized and have been for years, really. And then the legislative and regulatory changes that could be affecting firms and forcing these decisions. But beyond that, there are other considerations like technology displacement and what we mentioned when we first set up this topic, which obviously in 15 minutes, we're not going to cover everything. But for this particular topic, it is interesting that we see a lot of transitions in professionals and the lawyers who we know even making changes. Recruitment is incredibly challenging right now and competitive. We're seeing big firms making huge decisions and publishing them regarding attorney compensation and finding the right people who can form part of your team, but at the same time having lots of lawyers saying, I can do this in a different way. I want to focus on another thing and I'm out. And so that pressure has definitely influenced what it looks like going forward for some firms. And there is also a huge difference in the B2B space and the B2C space in terms of where things are growing and where things are changing. But according to a lot of the projections, there are major areas that we expect to grow. That's in the IPO, initial public offerings. That's in mergers and acquisitions. Regulatory and compliance has been an upward trajectory for a long time. That's not expected to change. New technologies and emerging practices of law are still on the upward trajectory and expected to expand even more. There has not been a plateau in things, for example, like cannabis, that is still growing. A lot of people are focusing on it now as the regulatory landscape regarding cannabis shifts around the world and it becomes more important to different corporations making investments for all sorts of things in different industries. Healthcare is on the rise. In the B2C space, you see, at least in the United States, a big increase in things like elder law and in labor law. Those areas are definitely expected to expand this year. So if you're a B2C lawyer, that could be relevant for you. But, if you're like most of the clients we work with, balancing your intellectual property practice, what affects you? What in that B2B space where you're dealing with corporations and you're offering your legal services, what's happening? What does the future of IP law look like? Well, a lot of the focus is on technology, and we know this already, but it doesn't hurt to talk about it. And we're talking about technology used to handle all sorts of things from document preparation to administrative work, legal filing, managing your firm, communications, collaboration, all of the things that just not the technology that's being protected under IP, but the technology that's being used to run your lives and to run your firms. And that could be changing the way your resources are invested. Maybe you can take on more clients at a smaller firm because you've got automation in place and you've got systems set up and you've got the right workflows together. Maybe, I mean, hopefully, if that's the direction you want to go in, you can still experience growth even in this incredibly competitive space. But what are those other forces? So some of those other forces we've talked about before, things like ALSPs, say that 5 times fast. Alternative legal service providers. These are still growing. I am seeing more of these pop up in different places. I'm seeing independent lawyers offering their services in new ways to create value for a client in ways that maybe they couldn't before. I'm seeing law firms offering consulting services in new ways and kind of limiting some of the legal services and liability that they face from the practice areas that they're not going away. They're just being handled in a different way. So maybe your corporate clients are becoming savvy, handling things on their own. On the trademark side, this is definitely a concern that you see across the board with third parties coming in. They're saying, we can do this better, we can do this cheaper, use our network. This happens in the patent space too, especially for things like filing and prosecution and intellectual property. So if the bulk of your practice has really been focused on those administrative legal services that can be automated, that can have technologies applied to them for the service delivery and for delighting the clients, that's something that, you know, either you play that game or you lose. So if you're still kind of doing everything the more traditional way and you haven't kind of shifted the value that you're adding for the prosecution work, and even if you have, think about it from the corporate perspective and think about where they're going to be investing money for a legal service such as trademark or patent filing work. You know, they're saying, this is commoditized, anyone can do it. I just want the cheapest price and the fastest service. And that's when the alternative legal service provider may have a leg up. They may be in an advantageous position to offer those services at a very low rate that you may not be able to compete with as someone who has to pay lawyers who are generally leaving your practice for greener pastures and a better life. So where does that leave us? Well, I still expect for 2022, in general, to see law firm practice areas grow basically across the board. I don't expect to see major contractions in any particular practice area. I know that's a very general statement, but you know, there are a lot of reasons for this, and we've touched upon some of them: regulatory, legislative changes, technology advancements, efficiencies being created, competition forcing your hand. There was something though that came out at me from a recent Clio report. And for those of you who don't know, Clio is a US-based solution that is available in a lot of different places in the world, primarily to English-speaking places, but it is a law firm practice management tool. And it offers a lot of different integrations. It offers its own CRM, and you know, you keep track of your cases in it, your contacts, and all sorts of other things, your billing, your timekeeping. It kind of puts everything together. There are a lot of solutions like this, but the reason Clio keeps coming up is because they're the loudest one out there. They're the fastest growing. They're very easy to use. The intuitiveness of the platform makes it appealing. It's priced right for small to mid-sized firms. It is not necessarily the best solution for every firm out there. I definitely recommend taking a look at the broader solution landscape and seeing what makes the most sense for the firm that you're in. But Clio is investing in all sorts of research to add value to its clients and potential clients, the law firm user base that it currently has. And that is appealing. There's a lot of information available, not just in their legal trends report, but they have a conference every year, and they're consistently putting out valuable information that helps shape our understanding of the industries that are utilizing legal services and how those legal services are being provided. So this is where some of these insights come from. And some of the things that they're projecting are spot on. And one of the things that resonated with me recently and the most is in light not just of the growing and contracting nature of legal services in different practice areas and different jurisdictions, but in light of law firm practice management at large. The thing that they published was the future of law firm services is cloud-based, that virtual law firm concept. And if you have not figured out how that works for your firm, that should be your priority now. And it should have been, probably has been, part of your digital transformation. But let's be clear, that one piece of solid advice and information about the legal services market is that you need to be cloud-based to be competitive. You need to be virtual to survive and be available and offer your services now. And if you're not, you're really far behind at this point. And if you haven't put that into place, that needs to be a priority. And so when you think about growing your practice and about contracting your practice, you have to think about the technology that you're employing. You have to think about your workflows. You have to think about automation. You have to think about the delivery of your legal services to different people and understand what kind of pressures are going to affect the different practice areas that you have and how you're offering your services. So while I don't see any particular practice area going away for 2022, I do see firms having to cut practice areas in IP and in other spaces because of the loss of people, because of technology displacement, or technology advances and efficiencies. And if you don't have the resources to deliver the legal services that you're offering to clients, they're going to have to go somewhere else anyway. And you're better off, maybe in some instances, cutting loose on some of those that are a liability for your practice and focusing on those that are more lucrative. And like we said before, those are corporate and transactions. Those are the M&A, the energy spaces, the environment is growing, new technologies are coming about. We're looking a lot at virtual reality, at the metaverse, we're looking at NFTs, anything that serves those industries, the legal services behind them. Intellectual property is a big part of that. There's a huge boom happening in that space and has been for some time. It's not brand new, but in 2022, it looks to be growing even more. And so take a look at your practice areas and be realistic with yourself and prioritize some of those investments that need to be made to make you successful. And if you have to cut something loose, you have to cut something loose. And if you want to grow a particular practice area, it's really important to understand what the future of how that legal service is going to be provided looks like. And there are a lot of resources out there that can help us understand that. And including resources from us at Firm Forward. On another note, we have an updated event tracker, and it's still the beginning of the year. Events are something that we get asked about all the time, and we see this kind of excitement. And I've said it before and have been wrong about this. So you hate to say that something is going to happen, it's going to be in person, everything's going to go perfectly well, and then have it not happen. That's very disappointing. But we are very excited about INTA coming back in person, and it's scheduled April 28th to May 4th, I think are the dates. Registration opened on January 19th. It's still the early bird. And from what we see in chat groups and online and social media, it looks like there's a lot of energy and excitement about this in-person event coming back, kind of the pinnacle of the year for IP conferences anyway. But as far as legal services and bar associations and law firm conferences go, INTA is definitely the top of our list. So if you haven't registered, register, go in person, and expect a lot of, wow, not the construction behind me. Expect there to be a lot of security and safety measures in place, of course, but plan things with refundable options and cancelable options. But the hope is that we'll see each other in person this year, hopefully at the INTA annual meeting in Washington, D.C. And If you have questions about other legal events that are happening, we do have our updated event tracker available. Send an email to request it, solutions@firmforward.com. We are happy to share that with you for all the events happening, whether it's ABA IPL or AIPLA events or other events happening internationally, different countries, whether they're virtual or in person. Just give us a shout. I hope you're finding this helpful at Live with Liz. And next week, hopefully I'll come to you live from Houston, where I currently belong. So thanks for joining me, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you again at Live with Liz. If there are any topics you want me to cover, by the way, let me know. We're still figuring those out for 2022. Anyway, have a good rest of your week. If I can figure out how to do my outro. Bye, everybody.